The Tennessee Titans traded for wide receiver Julio Jones. They gave up a 2022 second-round pick and a 2023 fourth-round pick, and the Titans received Julio Jones and a 2023 sixth-round pick. And the reason why there wasn't much draft compensation is because the Titans are taking on Julio Jones's entire salary. He's making $15.3 million this season, and in order to make this trade work, Ryan Tannehill had to restructure his contract. So that's why the compensation doesn't look that much for Julio. It's because the Titans are taking a huge financial burden with this trade. So the question is, do you believe the Tennessee Titans can be Super Bowl contenders now that they have Julio Jones?
You know, and first of all, shout out to Ryan Tannehill for his humility. You know, I wouldn't have done that, but the fact that he took a massive pay cut just to get Julio on the team shows that he cares about winning and he wants to win in this league. Do I think they're Super Bowl contenders? It's hard to say that a wide receiver can make that, you know, that massive jump for a team, you know, especially even a wide receiver being as good as Julio Jones. You know, him being injury prone last year, and the fact that the Titans defense is still where they need to be. And then you got the Colts, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Ravens, the Pats got better, the Dolphins are here. There's a lot of teams, the Bills, like the Browns. I can keep going in the AFC, and then not to mention even the NFC on the top. So there's a lot of teams that you could definitely put ahead of them, but I think this puts them in a pretty impressive position to fight for the division title. I think me and you agreed that we didn't think they were going to win the division. I think we both picked the Colts, but I think Julio Jones definitely puts the Colts in danger mode because now you don't have just one elite receiver. You have two elite receivers that can go deep and take it over the top, and Ryan Tannehill is definitely that quarterback that can make that throw, so that's going to be impressive. Not to mention they still have Derrick Henry in the backfield. So I think this doesn't necessarily make them Super Bowl contenders, but I think if you look at the AFC and you look at the landscape, you know, it's going to be the Colts and the Titans fighting for that division. And I think this definitely makes them a bit scarier than what the Colts were thinking of before.
I think it makes them sleepers. And the reason why is because it's not just that you're adding Julio Jones. He's a great receiver in himself that can transform an entire offense, but you're adding him to one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL, which means that Derrick Henry, you can't stack the box against him. If you want, then pick your poison against Julio Jones and A.J. Brown. And you mentioned this. You mentioned that we both picked the Colts. That was before they got Julio Jones. Now that Julio Jones is on the Titans,
changed the whole dynamic.
I completely expect the Titans to win the AFC South, and I think the Colts' biggest weakness on their team is, one, they don't have great receivers.
Yeah.
Michael Pittman Jr. is in his second year. T.Y. Hilton has regressed. Their receivers are still iffy. We're not sure how they're going to do, and that's pretty good for the Titans because their secondary is iffy. But then you look at the other weakness on the Colts roster, they don't have a great secondary. And now the Titans have one of the best passing attacks in the entire NFL. It doesn't bode well for the Colts. And I think the Titans can be sleepers because they're going to have a top offense next year, top 5, top 10 offense. Because they lost Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith, but Julio Jones replaces both of their productions.
By
and
far.
I don't think Todd Downing, their new OC, is going to be bad. I think he's going to be good. He won quarterback coach of the year not too long ago, so he knows a thing or two about offenses. He got hired within the ranks of the Titans coaching staff, so he's been there. They're going to run the same system. And personally, for me, I think that their defense got better because they went out and they signed Bud Dupree, Danico Autry, who I was really high on last year with the Colts. Caleb Farley, they drafted him, and I think he's going to be a star corner. Janoris Jenkins is going to be solid. That's the only question mark with them, though. Their secondary and if they can live up to expectations. But if their defense can be average, and I mean just borderline average, like 15th best defense in the league, even like 15 of the 20s, I think that they can be sleepers to contend.
I think, like, when you speak of Caleb Farley and Julio Jones, I think the only thing with those two, like, with that team is just injuries. You know, I think Julio coming off an injury-riddled season, Caleb Farley being picked so low because of the fact that he was injured, and that was a big injury concern for him. I think, like you said, though, adding those weapons, and this offense is going to be, I think, a top 4 offense, top 4, top 5 offense in the league. Derrick Henry just coming off a 2K season. A.J. Brown coming off a 1K season. Ryan Tannehill was impressive last year. So this is going to be a top 5, top 4 offense. It's just like you said, if the defense can be average at best. But with the Colts, they have a lot of familiarity in the program. Their defense, for the most part, is coming back. Their offensive line, for the most part, is coming back. The only question marks with them is at quarterback and their young receivers. Can they really make that second-year jump, and can they really make that leap? With the secondary, you're right. I like Xavier Rhodes. I think he did go back. I like him.
Yeah, Kenny Moore is
good. So it's not. I wouldn't say
it's not extraordinary.
Yeah, it's not extraordinary, but it's not weak. It's kind of in the middle. But that's going to be tough to be out there guarding AJ Brown and Julio Jones. They see them twice. Like I can't give you an answer on who I would pick to win the division, because the Colts are like, it's that Julio that made a big jump. But right now I can't give you a pick. But I think it's definitely, like, I agree though. I think the Titans will be sleepers, and it's going to be tough.
For some reason, when Ryan Tannehill first went on this stretch with the Titans, it was called kind of fluky back in 2019 in that season. Then in 2020, this past season, he did it again. Now the league has started to give him his respect. But when this Julio Jones trade happened, they started to disrespect him again, saying that he's downgrading from Matt Ryan to Tannehill. I think Tannehill is a better quarterback than Matt Ryan right now in this point in time.
I agree.
There's no doubt about it. And I love it. The reason why I love it is because I don't think any of you guys have been listening or watching this podcast from the very beginning, because we started the podcast in 2019 late in the NFL season, and we didn't have a following back then at all, like less than 100 subscribers. And at that time, I was really high on Tannehill. That going into the 2019 season, I picked the Titans to make the playoffs when Mariota was starting. And the reason I did was because I said if Mariota plays bad, Tannehill is a very good and capable quarterback. And I used to have arguments with Riv all the time, with JC, who was here last week all the time, that Tannehill is a franchise quarterback. And seeing him live up to those expectations are just making me so happy. And now I'm going to double down even more on it, because Ryan Tannehill, I think, is going to be the MVP next season.
And you standing on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Before Julio Jones got traded to the Titans, Tom Brady was my MVP.
Right.
Because I think he was just going to get better in his second year with Bruce Arians' offensive system. But Tannehill with Julio, with AJ, I think they'll be more pass heavy. People forget he was in the MVP race last season in 2020 throughout like the midway point of the year. He will win the MVP.
Oh, man.
And I will be glad when he does, because Ryan Tannehill is the man-a-hill. And I'm just glad he's getting his respect. He is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, I believe. At least, if he's not top 10, he's between 10 to like 12 area.
He's definitely in that top 10, 12 range.
But there's no doubt, if you look at the stats, he has been playing like a top 10. I mean, his stats, look, since he took over the Titans, he has a 111 quarterback rating, that ranks third. 55 touchdowns passing, that's third. 67 completion percentage, that ranks eighth. 8.5 yards per attempt, that ranks first. 18 wins, that's tied fifth. And people forget that in the playoffs, even though bulk of the load was given to Derrick Henry, Tannehill made some big-time throws. He made some very efficient throws that helped them, that put them in position to win those games. And I think last year versus the Ravens in the playoffs, they could have won that game if Arthur Smith relied on Tannehill's arm a little bit more. I think they went away from Tannehill when it was working early. But, yeah, I'm really high on this Titans team next year. It's just their defense. But I like their young secondary and Caleb Farley, Christian Fulton. I was really high on him coming out of LSU. So I expect the Titans to make some noise, and I think Ryan Tannehill will win the MVP next season.
So you said MVP, and then you got the Titans winning the division, and they're your sleepers.
Yes, there are three predictions right there. The Titans are sleepers to make the Super Bowl. Ryan Tannehill will win the MVP, and the Titans will win the AFC South. The Super Bowl one, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. That's why they're sleepers. But in Ryan Tannehill and the Titans winning the AFC South, no doubt about it, that will happen, because in order for Tannehill to win MVP, they have to win the division. Honestly, they have to. So I think both of those will happen. And if Tannehill doesn't finish first in MVP voting, he'll definitely finish top 5. I'm not even.
I don't want it. Don't double down.
I'm just saying. He will finish top 5, but I do have him finishing as the MVP for the year. And I think the Julio Jones trade was fantastic.
That was crazy.
It was fantastic. I know that everybody thought he was either going to get traded to Tennessee or Baltimore.
I had the Pats.
Yeah, the Pats too, but it turns out a lot of those teams weren't interested in Julio.
And AJ was making a big pitch for getting Julio there, so I think that was cool too.
Yeah, so I can't wait to watch the Titans next year. They're going to be really fun to watch.